Hello everyone, this video is on cultivating and integrating higher states of consciousness. And so on the one hand, we want to cultivate these higher states of consciousness so that everybody has an easier time of it in the world. We can transmute our suffering into higher states of consciousness so we don't feel that all that pain was just a waste and pointless, that it actually fuels our awareness and we can live a more contented, peaceful life no matter what's happening in the changing world. We want to cultivate that because if we don't cultivate these higher states of consciousness, life can get really difficult. We don't really understand why things are happening to us. We resist what's going on. We judge other people. We're hard on ourselves. We don't resolve in a conflict and our childhood wounding, and we pass that on into generations to come. And so we want to cultivate these higher states of consciousness. We want to create a peaceful place within ourselves, even though there's chaos in the world. And so we can cultivate these higher states of consciousness by setting the conditions for them to arise. And just by living your life and messing it up and wanting to extricate ourselves out of our misery, that in itself is a really good ground to cultivate higher states of consciousness because we just don't want to suffer anymore. We get fed up, we get to a breaking point. We get so sick of just being in a place of confusion or anger or blowing up our life or other people's lives that we come to this point that then can propel us into higher states of consciousness. And everybody's lives are different. Some people have breaking points earlier on, others have many different points that propel them into higher states of consciousness. And so it's happening. It's always being cultivated. However, there are some things that we can do to smooth it and speed it along. And I would say the most important thing is to take care of yourself, to make sure that you're sleeping, you're eating healthy, you're not intoxicated. Because these higher states of consciousness, they're housed in the human physiology. And so we want to be able to maintain them and integrate them. And so if we have a blast or an experience through drugs or hallucinations, through psychedelics, which is fine, we want to be able to integrate. It's all about integration. I personally don't do psychedelics. I do the CIDI program, the TM CIDI program. I also used to be a mindfulness teacher, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy teacher to teach the teachers who then teach mindfulness. And so I started off doing a meditation practice twice daily, which is in silence, following the breath, the sensations of the body. And then I moved on to doing mantra based meditation and then the TM City program, which is very advanced. And you move around in a meditative state and create effects in the atmosphere, which are very beneficial. And so I've talked about this before that you can actually lower hospital admissions, you can reduce the crime rates that our brains are studied by science. This isn't woo-woo. Once we start to transcend and enter a deep meditative state and move around in that state, we can create massive effects in the atmosphere. We can also cultivate higher states of consciousness rapidly within ourselves, and it's very good to have teachers or people around you to help you if that happens, because sometimes it can be a bit discombobulating and you can have strange experiences and not necessarily integrate those higher states into your waking life. And so some siddhas or some people that do a lot of advanced meditation can blow up. They can blow up their lives. They can almost become too reclusive that they don't pay their bills, or they they're not able to fully function sometimes if there's a lot of energy in their nervous system and it kind of blows a fuse if they're not taking care of themselves, doing the yoga, keep the physical activity up, eating correctly, if they spend too much time meditating and not integrating through activity and food, and you need to do that. And so the integration part is essential, and it's not really talked about. I mean, it's kind of thrown about, the word integration and but what does that actually mean? Everybody's just focused on the cultivation and then they forget about the integration. So there's not a lot to integrate unless you're learning how to unlock the keys to the kingdom and actually dive and transcend. And you can do mindfulness meditation, you can follow your breath, you can do these things, but unless you're actually entering a fourth state of consciousness, then you're not really necessarily going to have a huge amount to integrate. Um, if you do start to unlock that kingdom and enter the fourth state of consciousness, which is different from waking, dreaming, and sleeping, it can flood your system with a lot of cosmic intelligence. It can fry your nervous system if you're not careful. It can be very powerful. These techniques are very powerful. They're not something to just play around with, especially when you start doing more advanced meditation techniques such as the city programs. And I'm sure other cultures and people have different ways of doing this, but this is the one I'm familiar with. It's not a joke. Being a sitar is not a joke. It affects the nervous system. It prepares the nervous system to house a lot of non-physical activity. And when your nervous system is getting prepared to house a multitude of non-physical entities, and you end up becoming somewhat of a collective. I know that sounds quite spooky or crazy to some people, but when you are traversing the realms of non-physical, you run across a lot of non-physical beings, um, alien activity, because it's just something that you don't fully know what that is, lineages, and you can open up communication channels with those beings, and you also know how to integrate that and how to open a door and how to close it. And this might seem a bit otherworldly to some people, but it is accessible and anybody can learn to do it. You don't have to be special to do it. You just have to, one, learn how to transcend. And the easiest way to do that is through finding an effortless meditation practice, such as transcendental meditation. And if you're lucky, you can do it with mindfulness. Great. I personally found it a bit harder, but it's up to you ultimately. But once you learn to transcend, you're meditating, you've got the keys to the kingdom, you're opening up those channels. A lot of non-physical intelligence can flow through you. You are protected. You have Kavach. So you are going to be challenged at times, but you do have Kavachi, which is like invisible armor. So when we're traversing these realms, we can stumble across our biggest fears and things that we haven't resolved from the past and things that have happened to other people that they haven't resolved. And it's all going to come out of your nervous system. It needs to, because when you're cultivating higher states of consciousness, anything that's unresolved, anything that's in the murky areas of the subconscious, it blocks that smooth rise into higher states of consciousness sometimes. So it all gets dredged up and shown to you. It can be shown to you through streams of thoughts. It can be shown to you through nightmares. It can be shown to you through severe anxiety. It can be shown to you through shaking or different things going on in your body, and something good is happening. You just have to take care of yourself, make sure you're exercising, resting when you need to, eating when you need to, being around people that are nourishing and caring, and maybe avoiding or removing people in your life that maybe don't have your best interests in mind. And so it's a delicate process. You're on the leading edge of human evolution and the nervous system's changing. It's, I guess, I've never thought about it this way, but it makes you non neurotypical. So when you, maybe before you are a meditator that's transcending or before an awakening, you're kind of more neurotypical. You have certain ways of seeing the world. This is good, this is bad. It's very black and white. There's a box you're in. I'm a human, that's a person over there that's different from me. It's a certain box that you're living in. And then when you transcend that, the box just falls apart. And slowly, or maybe not so slowly for some people, you become non neurotypical. And when I mean non neurotypical, I mean that the box is not there. So the idea of who you are and your identity expands into everything else. And so you're able to hold paradoxes more easily. You're able to hold multiple points of view at the same time. You're not stuck in your way of thinking. You can see it from other people's points of view. You might be able to see it from an animal, a different animal's point of view. Like, what is the point of view from a cat? What is the point of view from a snake? What is the point of view from a worm? What is the point of view from a plant? What is the point of view from this person, this person, this person? You're able to hold a lot and feel connected to it. And so the idea of you being a separate human dissolves, the idea of being a human dissolves. And that's quite a relief. It's quite a relief to realize you're not a human. The idea that you're a human is an idea. Yes, you have like a physical body that looks like a human, but you're not a human. And that might not make sense until it does. But so that's what I mean, like when you're non-neurotypical. So this is why I love people on the spectrum, because people on the spectrum, they don't have that box. And so they're able to be so unbounded, and they can get access to information, and also their nervous system can take a hit because they're so unbounded, and then they come back, it's feel bound in this human meat suit, and so they find it hard to function, but fundamentally they're so unbounded, and so they're already in a different state just by being non-neurotypical and on the spectrum. And so I'm going to throw this out there. It's probably not been said before that when we're evolving as a human species, part of it is to move from being neurotypical into being non-neurotypical. And so I think the more evolved you are, the more non-neurotypical you are going to be. And so that can sometimes mean that it's difficult being in a human body because you have to house so much information. Because when the box falls apart, you get flooded with a lot of information from different energy fields of things that maybe a neurotypical person doesn't get access to. You can get psychic abilities, you can get all sorts of other abilities, you feel other people's emotions more, feel your own emotions at a deeper level. I mean, I have clients that have shifted into higher states of consciousness that now are able to see resonances of things, and it it does develop. It's just part of evolving as a human species, is that the box falls apart, the idea of you being a separate being falls apart, and you realize in a obvious or not so obvious way that you are everything. And that can be very mind blowing for some people. For some people, it happens gracefully. For other people, it happens less gracefully. I have a friend of mine who needed to be nursed for many years because they blasted into a higher state of consciousness and couldn't function. But now it's integrated and they got help integrating it. They're all good and they have a load of siddhis, which are special abilities, and they use them to help humanity. And there are people in the world that you might never have heard of, that are not on social media, that you would just not know if you saw them in the supermarket or out and about. And they're highly evolved beings and they have a load of siddhis. And just being in their presence can blast you and upgrade your own physiology. And I've been very lucky to be around somebody who is anonymous, who I won't name, who is one of those people and is probably watching this video. So thank you. I probably wouldn't be talking right now as I am if it wasn't for you. And this person, it's a non-neurotypical person. It's a person on the spectrum. It's a person that changes people's lives just automatically and spontaneously, just because if you're in the presence of somebody like that, something happens. There's a resonance. You get infected. Oh gosh, am I infecting you through the screen? Um, you do. I mean, and people have an effect on other people's nervous systems. It's real. You become like the people you spend the most time with. You become like the people that you listen to. So be careful who you listen to. Your brains start to sync up. We merge, we share information. There's a lot of non physical information that's shared between individuals. So individuals become more alike. And if you have a powerful individual, a powerful being, and you're in that being's presence, you can get ignited. Your nervous system can be affected. So, this person that is anonymous, I fainted many times on his floor and woken up the next day, or been on a Zoom with him and then being zapped. And that person was around gurus in India. And so there's another guru here in my family that zap people behind. So we're getting zapped all the time. And who are these people? Where do they come from? Are they, sent from another dimension to upgrade human consciousness? Do they even know who they are? And this might seem spooky to people, it might seem woo woo, but until it happens to you, you might not believe it. But when it happens to you, it is very real. There are people moving around in the kingdom that have the capacity to upgrade other people's consciousness just by being in their presence. It's like a candle. And when you have a candle and it's put next to another candle, the other candle lights up, and so it goes on, and then everybody's lit up. And you have these beings, and they have big lights, and they light people up in their vicinity, and then those people go out, and then they light people up. And this is not linked to any religion. This is not linked to a Hindu religion. It's not linked to any religion. You can have people of all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds doing this. You can have an aborigine that's lit up through being in nature and communicating with animals that does this. You can have a priest in a Catholic church doing this. He gets lit up through his devotion to Jesus, and then something happens. You can have this happen in the Himalaya. You can have it happen to somebody at a supermarket that's just bending down and, you know, putting their groceries, and who knows what's happened, but somebody's come into their vicinity, and then boom, they get an idea that they want to maybe go do some meditation out of nowhere or whatever it might be. And so we're all kind of moving around and interacting with each other, bumping into each other, sharing this information. And so that's pretty cool. I know this video's a bit way out, but sometimes things just get channeled that are way out. What can I do? I never know. Like when I sit down to do a video, I can have it in my head like, oh, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to dumb it down. I'm going to make it more accessible to people. I want to stop being so way out there. People are going to be freaked out. But when I sit down, it just comes out. I don't actually know what I'm going to say every time I video. I really have no idea. I don't use scripts. I just come up with stuff. It just, so I, take it or leave it. Fast forward, pause, or delete. It's up to you. But this is what's coming through today: cultivating and integrating higher states of consciousness. And so you're automatically cultivating them just by living. There are things you can do. Being around people that can ignite you is a good one. People in India have been doing this for many millennia, where they go and they search a guru, they search a teacher that is ignited and know that they will be ignited. You don't have to be special. If you are in the vicinity of the thing, of a being that embodies the Veda, that embodies the totality, the job's done. You could have been a criminal, you could have been a hooker, you could have been suffering childhood abuse as an orphan, a homeless person. If you get in the vicinity of that, job is done, So you're very lucky to find those people. Extremely lucky to find those people. It's like gold, it's like diamonds. But sometimes you have the awareness to know, you can sense that's what they are. Other times your physiology just reacts. That you kind of get attracted, you get gifted those people in your life. Um, and I don't know why that is, and why certain people come into the vicinity of those people. And some people, their awareness has come to a point where they're sensitive to the thing. They're sensitive to individuals that have that thing, and they know that that's where true success lies, and they home in on those people. and they gain everything. It's like going for the fort. You can be scrabbling around, trying to buy the bakery, trying to buy, you know, different bits of land. You can spend your whole life trying to get these little things. But if you get the fort, you get everything. You get the bakery, you get all the land, you get everything. And so the highest state of consciousness gives you everything else, but it needs to be integrated for it to fully show up in your life. And so there's like a step, you get it, and then you have to integrate it. And that is a whole process. And I should do another video on that. One last thing, you have to be yourself in order for full integration to happen. So you can get given the keys to the kingdom, you can transcend, you can get all this cosmic information in, and then in order for it to be integrated, you have to be yourself, and that's going to look different for different people. Just because you're a meditator doesn't mean you have to sit cross-legged and, wear spiritual clothes. You could look like anything. It has to be you. You have to feel comfortable, and it doesn't have to look like the person next to you. And so you have to listen to who you are now. And also, caveat, when you cultivate higher states of consciousness, things can get taken away and replaced, and your dharma can shift slightly. You can have many lives in one life. That's why you have to always be listening to see, who am I now? Who am I now? Not who was I yesterday? Who was I a few seconds ago? Who am I now? Because things can start speeding up and changing rapidly because you're speeding up your evolution. You're on the fast track. You're getting used, you're getting repurposed, you're getting given things to do that you couldn't do before because you weren't in that state. And so once you light up, the universe is like, okay, and then it can get really confusing if you're living in the past and you're not in the now. If you're trying to be the way you were, when that's old news, you're not that person anymore. That's dead and gone. Like, just forget about it. And then you're trying to hold on to something that's gone and dead and it's not there to even hold on to. It's because it's like driving and you need to look where you're going, but you're looking backwards. You'll crash. And part of the integration process is looking where you're going now and not looking back. Because every time you're looking back, you can crash, you can blow up your life, or you suppress your consciousness because you're going into the past. Everything occurs now, even the emotions, they can be linked to the past, but they're happening now, and you have to be who you are now. And there's a job and a purpose to now, and you've got to get with the times. And we are now evolving so rapidly, and everything that's not serving us is being brought up. It can't hide, and it's being shown to the world. You can't hide. You've got no option but to get, on in the fast lane. Otherwise, it'll be really uncomfortable. If you're not going to be in the fast lane, it's going to get very uncomfortable for you. And when I mean getting in the fast lane, I mean showing up as yourself and dealing with any CRAP that has happened to you in the past and not just shoving it under the rug, because that's part of the integration process is dealing with any emotional wounds, like in the now. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. If you need to do things to understand your blind spots or to understand your psychology, do it. It's not that you're going to meditate and get higher states of consciousness and then everything gets fixed. You're going to have the ability to fix the ship, to know where there's cracks. So it's exciting. You really get to know yourself on a deeper level. Cultivating compassion for everyone in the process is really helpful because we're all going through this. You're not alone. It's not easy being a human. It's not easy being, we're all kind of in a fast lane right now as humanity's rapidly expanding in consciousness. We've had meditators that have been transcending. We've had siddhas in groups. That's created a big wave and rise in collective consciousness. I could never even talk like this. Even maybe 6 months, a year ago, I couldn't have talked like this. The vibe is so high. I think you can understand this. I think that you could have get it. And so the vibe is so high. I did not exist back maybe 12 years ago. I couldn't have spoken like this. I'm only speaking like this because the vibe's so high. So humans are becoming non-neurotypical. This is going to start happening faster and faster. The people that are non-neurotypical are going to come to the surface. They're going to be really successful. They're going to inspire us all. And it's going to be really difficult if you're in a box. People in a box, limited thinking, black and white thinking, are going to have a tough time. So, just warning you that that could be really restrictive. And as part of my integration, I'm going to go and make myself some food. Okay, thank you.